The mornings in his house were quiet, as if everything inside knew there was no need to hurry. The curtains slid open by themselves, and pale light seeped in through the panoramic windows, reflecting off the marble surfaces. The air smelled different at each hour of the day, though he couldn't remember the last time he had opened a window himself. Everything had its rhythm: the coffee maker that switched on automatically, the silver trays carried in by a silent servant, the towels replaced before they had even cooled. Time in the residence was stretched and sticky. Days passed in the slow rhythm dictated by the sounds of mechanisms, the whisper of curtains, the faint hum of the air conditioning, the steady thud of the elevator. Each room had its own fragrance, tailored like a bespoke suit. There was no need to go outside. The winter garden supplied fresh air, and the giant screen could simulate the view of any place in the world. One day, while holding a cup, he noticed his fingers gleamed unnaturally. They were smooth, cold, poreless. They no longer looked like a part of his body, more like delicately carved porcelain figurine elements. To the touch, they were hollow, as if there was nothing inside but air. He ignored it, but with each passing day, new changes appeared. The skin on his calves began to resemble the texture of his favorite armchair's upholstery. His shoulders smelled of freshly treated leather, and his lips had taken on the shade of the red lacquer of his car. The suit he wore no longer had seams. It grew out of his shoulders like a natural part of his body. When he tried to cut it, the knife snapped in his hand. The watch began to grow into his skin. At first, it only felt heavier. Later, it became impossible to remove. The metal links fused with his flesh, and the dial pulsed in time with his heart. Luxurious objects were no longer separate from him, they were becoming him. The days blurred together. Meals were served in perfect order, but their flavors dulled. The television displayed nothing but endless commercials for things he already owned. The windows grew darker, the glass thickened, and the world outside dissolved into a shapeless haze of lights and shadows. At night he woke with the sensation of a metallic taste on his tongue. One morning he discovered his tongue was gold. Words spoken aloud were heavy, clanging like coins striking marble. They echoed against the walls, which seemed to be listening. The walls breathed in his rhythm, the floors pulsed, the air tasted like his own lungs. He had the impression the residence was learning his breath, knowing him better than he knew himself. More and more often, he felt it Wasn't he who lived in the house, it was the house that lived in him. Time ceased to exist in any familiar form. He no longer knew how many days had passed. Hours stretched, nights were short and sleepless. The footsteps he heard belonged to no one. They were like echoes of his own, but distant, reverberating deep within the walls. Sometimes he heard a whisper muffled, soft, without words. Luxury had become his skin, wealth his muscles, comfort his bloodstream. Every object in the residence breathed with him. The house was not empty. The house was him. He was the house. And he knew he would never leave